The Commodore 64 is one of the most popular personal computers of all time and has provided millions of aging adults with great gaming memories of their youth back in the 1980s and early 90s. Retro Games Limited attempts to rekindle those memories for us by releasing their mass consumer product, the C64 Mini. The C64 Mini is an emulator of the Commodore 64 running on a dual-core Cortex ARM CPU. The emulator is presented in a small form replica case and utilises a polished user interface to allow the general consumer to load up and play one of the 64 preloaded games. The C64 Mini is professionally packaged and comes with an outer sleeve that is quite pleasing to the eye. The front of the sleeve clearly shows what is physically inside the box and that 64 games are included with the emulator. The reverse side of the box lists all of the games included with the C64 Mini, with screenshots highlighting some of the more higher profile games. As we remove the outer sleeve, we find that the inner packaging is equally attractive but more reservedly so. You obtain a full appreciation for the level of detail with the packaging as you open up the box to unveil the mini unit and joystick, highlighting the fact that Retro Games has gone that one extra step to present the C64 Mini as a product of significance. Underneath the main event items, you will find a HDMI cable, a micro USB power cable, 5-volt charger not supplied, and a quick guide booklet to get you started. A copy of the full version of the user manual is available online from the C64 website and is worth downloading as it contains useful step-by-step instructions to get the most out of the C64, including a rudimentary basic programming language tutorial. The backers edition of this bundle, available to all original Indiegogo and pre-order backers of the full-size 64 unit, comes bundled with 4 limited edition artwork posters put together by David Rowe, who created the artwork for several classic games such as Populous, Continental Circus and Burdekin. The posters are of good quality and the artwork is quite attractive. The addition of the posters is a nice touch by Retro Games Limited, and they should be credited for going the extra step to reward original backers with this gift, while they patiently wait for the full-size model to be produced. As we look at the C64 Mini unit itself, we can see that it is beautifully presented in detail and is of high quality. The keyboard on the unit is only there for aesthetics and is not functional in any way. Looking at the right side of the case, we can see 2 USB ports and a power button. Along the back, we have a HDMI and a micro USB power port. The joystick that comes with the C64 Mini is set out in a replica of the iconic Competition Pro joystick. The joystick feels sturdy in the hand with a good weight and utilises tactile switches, not micro switches, as many would have hoped for. The joystick contains 2 fire buttons to accommodate both left and right-handed gamers, along with left and right trigger buttons and 4 function buttons along the back, with the one on the far right acting as a menu button that brings up various options while in the main menu or in the game. Switching on the C64 Mini, the system boots into a nice looking home menu that allows you to scroll through the list of 64 games on offer. As you navigate through the game carousel, you are provided with a preview image of the highlighted game along with a brief descriptive overview of what it is about. The ability to select one of 6 different game displays can be found within the options menu and provides the gamer with a choice of pixel perfect, European 4x3, North American 4x3, with all 3 being available in CRT mode as well. One thing to note, at times the system did freeze up on me, particularly when going in and out of the basic application. I would expect that this minor inconvenience will be rectified as part of the future firmware update. Your enjoyment of the C64 Mini is going to depend on how familiar you are with the games that it contains. The built-in game library is heavily biased towards UK-based software developers from the 8-bit era such as Epix, Thalamus, Gremlin Graphics and Hewson. Reaction to the game library will be subjective and hence mixed, as we all grew up with the Commodore 64 exposed to a different collection of games. In my personal case, as an avid C64 fan from Australia exposed to the power side of the C64 games, I am aware of 90% of the library on offer, and I would consider the collection on offer to be strong. Yes, it would be great to have Whizball, Last Ninja and Turrican included, to name a few, and I'm sure Retro Games would love to have obtained the licensing for them if they could. But all in all, I'm satisfied with what is on offer here. In saying this, I appreciate that our NTSC region friends will find the game library less palatable. Selecting a game to load up and play provides instant gratification, as each game takes only a few seconds before it is ready for the gamer to start the action. The simple plug-and-play nature of the unit means that there is no fuss in getting the best possible display on your monitor or TV screen, and perhaps this is one of the system's key strengths, avoiding the need to fuss about with upscalers or high-quality RGB cables to get the quality display output that we all expect. While you are in a game, pressing the menu button will result in the game's option menu appearing, providing the ability to use one of the 4 save states per game, or alternatively to access the virtual keyboard. The in-game menu function is also used to exit the game and return the user to the main menu. The TheC64 Mini also provides access to BASIC, allowing you to whip up a quick program listing just as you did as a kid back in the 80s, though I advise that you use an external keyboard for this function rather than relying on the inbuilt virtual keyboard. The BASIC application would also be used to load external ROMs onto the TheC64 Mini so that you can play games outside of the built-in library, but more on that a little later in this review. While I was putting the TheC64 Mini through its paces, I was pleasantly surprised by what the unit could accommodate via its USB ports. While the TheC64 Mini does not have a built-in functional keyboard, a wired USB keyboard can be utilised via one of the USB port connections. I even tried a wireless USB keyboard, and I was overjoyed to confirm that it did work. USB joysticks can also be used with the TheC64 Mini if it has at least 8 buttons. I plugged in my wired Logitech gamepad and could play the games with it on the TheC64 Mini with no hassle. Unfortunately, I did not have a wireless gamepad on hand to see if it would work, but given that the wireless keyboard worked, then I would expect that a wireless 8-button joystick to work as well. For those who will require more than 2 USB ports, you do have the option to use a powered USB hub so that you can have a joystick, external keyboard and a USB stick connected and working all at the same time. It is possible to load up and play external game ROMs onto the TheC64 Mini via a USB stick. However, this functionality is currently limited in the first version of the firmware that the TheC64 Mini comes with upon release date. Under the first version of the firmware, any external ROM that you want to load must be in a TheC64 image format and must specifically be named TheC64-drive8.TheC64. All other files, including other .TheC64 files, will be ignored. With the USB inserted containing your renamed ROM file, launch the BASIC application and type in the relevant command to obtain a directory listing. You can then use the load command to load the ROM that you wish to play. Most single games will work fine with this method, though I did experience some issue with the display not quite fitting in correctly, as we can see here with the game Galencia. If you have up to 4 favorite single loader external games, then you could utilize the 4 available save states under BASIC to have these games ready to play without fussing around with a USB stick. The external file limitation has far greater consequences if you want to play multi-disc games. It is possible to play multi-disc games, but this requires a convoluted process involving save states, exiting games, removing the USB stick, inserting it into a PC to rename the B-side image to the TheC64-drive8.TheC64 file name, and then reinserting the USB back into the Mini and then loading it up again to restore the save state. Well, I'm sure you get the picture. It is far from convenient. Retro Games Limited has expressly stated that they will be looking to provide a firmware update that will include an advanced game launcher that will accommodate the ability to read any .TheC64 image, along with providing multi-disc support very soon. If you are a hardcore C64 hardware fanatic, or someone who does not appreciate the charm of the replica product over a retro Pi equivalent, then this is not really the product for you. For everyone else, whether it be someone who has left the gaming scene for the past 20 odd years to only being drawn back in by the great childhood memories of playing on a Commodore 64 on an easy to use system, or perhaps you're a retro gaming fanatic who recognises that versatile emulated gaming systems have their place in our homes alongside our aging PCs or consoles, then it is difficult to dismiss the C64 Mini. If or when the external game launcher issue can be rectified, then I think Retro Games can confidently claim that they have a very compelling solution to satisfy the needs of today's typical C64 gamer.